Thank you, Anne. Hi, everyone. My name is Christa. I live on beautiful Salt Spring Island, which is the west coast of Canada, kind of the tropical part of Canada, if you will. Anyway, very pleased to be here today. And I'd like to tell you a bit of my story, which is about a life-changing event that started when I was 21, and it's fresh in my mind as if it was yesterday, but to be honest, it's like 44 years ago. So it was a rather big defining moment for me. But so I'll tell you a little bit about my story. And way back when, in the 70s, I was a university student in Vancouver, BC, Canada, and I was in training to become a teacher. I would always love teaching people how to read and love the math and so on. But in my pre-service teaching, as they call it, when you go out as a kind of a student teacher, I found that I really couldn't connect with kids that were hard to reach. You know, the ones that were on board and were willing and able, no problem. My skill set and my personality were just fine to help them move along. But I thought maybe I'm not cut out for this, because I couldn't reach those who were hard to reach, whether they be frozen or acting out or that type of thing, having trouble with learning or trouble at home, whatever. And so I thought, maybe I'll just take a little break from this and reflect on should I or should I not continue with this? Maybe I need to do another path. So anyway, I went off to Europe for a year and studied at the University of Freiburg, which was super fun, and traveled around, met some wonderful Europeans and Canadians. And as students, we traveled around to England and France and Spain and Switzerland and of course Germany, and just had a great time. Really, really loved it. And then came back home. And I had a very special friend, a pal named Bob, and he invited me to come and visit him. He was doing this little house sitting job on one of the Gulf Islands, which is near Vancouver. So I went to visit him, and in that year where I went to Europe and he did his thing, and on the west coast of Canada and the States at the time, it was kind of like the new age thing, and people were really searching for the meaning to life. So you know, I went one way. I didn't even own a pair of jeans anymore. I was all kind of posh and European. And my friend Bob had kind of gone the other way, and he had his ripped overalls and so on. I mean, we looked quite the pair. We were quite funny looking. But in that visit, I determined that, wow, he's going on this path that's just not for me. He was going to join whatever, and I'm like, wow, that's not my thing. And I remember thinking on the ferry ride home, wow, I gotta see about some new friends. This guy and I are just kind of going opposite directions. Well, to my surprise, a few weeks later, I was already back at the classes that started at UBC. And Bob came to visit me in Vancouver, and he says, I found the secret to life. I'm like, yeah, right, really, really, sure. And he just started telling me this amazing story, how he'd been caretaking this little cottage on the island, and he'd met the neighbors, of course, noticed a tremendous change in his neighbor and friend, Chip Chipman, who many people know. And so Chip was like, well, Sid is giving a public talk on Salt Spring Island, which was nearby. Why don't you go? So Bob thought, well, yes, I'll check it out. And so Bob went over to Salt Spring and heard Sid speak. It was his first public talk on Salt Spring Island. And it was absolutely blown away with what Sid shared. And so he immediately came to visit me to tell me about what he'd heard and what he was experiencing. It was kind of funny at the beginning because I was arguing with Bob, like, sure, you found the secret to life, hard to believe, but also, what do you mean my thought creates my reality? At first, I very much argued, and I'm like, well, actually, it's circumstance. And I've had pretty good circumstance, so I've been really lucky and been kind of a happy person, but it's the circumstance that determines my state of mind, and that's just the way it is. But anyway, we hung out for a few days, and I probably skipped classes. Anyway, we hung out for a few days, but it was, to be honest, it was really this feeling that Bob now had that intrigued me above all else, because intellectually I'm like arguing away, and but it was this feeling. It was actually brand new, not kind of new. It was brand new because it was kind of full of vitality yet very calm, and I was like, I like that. I really like that feeling of deep happiness and calm, yet you're also enthusiastic. It really appealed to me. So it was really the feeling that got me. And what I found, Bob left town. He was just kind of visiting. He left town, and I went and started my the bigger practicum, working with like 12 and 13-year-olds. And I found that without even trying or analyzing in my intellect, all of a sudden, I was the most surprised. All of a sudden, I was reaching all these kids that previously I couldn't get near. And I'm like, wow, this is awesome. And I was just, in my personal life, university kids have a big personal life. I was just happier. I was just really, wow, happiness is inside. I think I get this. And also just hearing about thought, creating reality. I for sure didn't really understand it, but just the idea that, oh, it has something to do with my thought. And just that little inkling, I think what happened was my busy mind settled down and became calm. And then all of a sudden, I was getting these insights from my own wisdom. And all of a sudden, things would pop out my mouth just naturally. And it just kind of would land perfectly with the kids I was working with. And I'm like, wow, this is awesome. I think I will continue. And I had a tremendous fall semester. Bob was no longer in Vancouver, but just what he left me with was so powerful. And to be honest, I still remember very clearly, it was like late winter and my mood dipped, and it frightened me terribly. I was like, oh my gosh, I think I've lost it. But now it was obviously just a mood. And then my new level of understanding was there for me again. It was late winter, like early March, when Bob came back to the city, and he's like, Sid Banks is speaking on a neighboring island. Do you want to go? And I'm like, yeah, for sure. So we went for the weekend, and at that time, there were no recordings or anything really of Sid, right? So I hadn't heard him. I hadn't even seen a picture of him. So we went to this public talk on Main Island, and I'll never forget, Sid and his late wife, Barb, had just returned from Hawaii, and he just looked incredible. I love the sun, so I was like so impressed with his glowing brown skin, and just, but the talk was just incredible to me. After the talk, people gathered around Sid, as people will gather around a speaker to ask questions. And I was kind of in line waiting, and really kind of, isn't it funny how we remember things from 44 years ago, clear as a bell? I remember just kind of standing there, waiting my turn and trying to think of something really clever to ask, being as I was a university student, and thinking, and then I got near to him, and his eye caught mine. And for whatever reason, the question I had just kind of dissolved. And I kind of, I had this insight, came from within me, that oh, it's the wisdom that I'm after. You know, I've been chasing the intellect. Oh, it's wisdom that I really want more of. Obviously, I'm a teacher. I love the intellect, but that was a tremendous, tremendous insight for me. It just gave me such peace of mind, to be honest. And the rest of the weekend was just fabulous.
And
Went
what exactly do you mean by the difference between wisdom and intellect?
Intellect, things I've learned and I've studied and I've analyzed, and wisdom being fresh new thought. Yeah, via a calm mind. Obviously, I've had insights growing up. I would, as a child, I would see things and I knew it would be true, and that was my, you know, I would get an insight about what was going on in the family or on the playground or whatever. And we all do. We all get insights that help keep us safe and that help us be open to love and so on. But it was a matter of what was my priority. And that moment I realized, oh, my true heart is really more on the wisdom side, where the happiness and the love lies. Although like I said, I honor the intellect as well. On the Monday, I was back at university, and it was a real dramatic weekend. And people are like, "What happened to you?" So even I guess looked different. Maybe not that I was an unhappy person, but maybe my face was happier or something. I don't know. But I found from that point on, like this is in the middle of the university semester, that when I did my studies, I'm not in the pre-service teacher now, I'm doing my university studies, that the wisdom synchronizing with the intellect was just like the best ticket ever. It was awesome. And like my big thing, it's kind of a boring thing, but I think it's common, is procrastination was my thing. And I found all of a sudden that like I caught myself in the middle of making an excuse and procrastinating. And when you catch yourself in the act, it's kind of like the jig is up and you can't kind of trick yourself anymore. So I remember that kind of, and then I kind of laughed to myself thinking, and realized in that moment that I spent way more energy on making excuses than doing the darn thing. So it was kind of like, it was revealed to me right in the moment when you catch yourself and you see, is this thought serving me, or am I taking myself down this garden path away from where I really need to be and want to be? So sorry, I just got distracted by the chat. Oh, okay. So what I found was the wisdom really helped me get the intellectual stuff done. I had this feeling of just kind of going for it. And just having that confidence to write those papers and state my opinion based on this and this and this. And the results were fabulous. You know, no more late fees, no more docked marks, no more parking traffic tickets. Just kind of started just kind of cleaning up my act. And by doing that, I had way more time for way more fun. It was just incredible. So I've never, ever forgotten those things of, oh, something to do with thought. And then that happiness is inside. And that wisdom and the intellect can synchronize to serve you really well. So that was kind of the big start to my life changing. And that was when I was 21 years old. How lucky was I to come upon this? And then, oh, here's another part of the story, which of course I love. Bob, the friend who I thought, I will never see this guy again. We're going on such different paths. We've been married 43 years, 42 years. obviously those differences that were on the surface dissolved, dissipated. And I think the really beautiful thing for young people to know is if you have as your priority unconditional love and happiness, that you're guided as to how to treat yourself, how to treat others. Of course, through 40 plus years of marriage, we've, had loss and separation in the family. Obviously, the tax man is there, sometimes we get audited. All those things happen to us, didn't get the job, did get the job, whatever, all these things happen. But having our love as a priority has really been incredible to rest assured, to feel secure in yourself and with the people that you're closest to. It's just the most incredible feeling, and it creates this life that really becomes beyond your dreams. New dreams open up and new things happen. It's just and you get to, obviously I'm older, but you get to keep that youthful feeling of enjoyment and enthusiasm and joy. And then obviously if sad things are happening, that you see people and yourself with compassion. But that the happiness is inside, and that I can dip into that anytime and all the time has been just really remarkable. And so if you don't know Sydney Banks, he's an author, philosopher, who very, very selflessly, an ordinary man, it's worth looking up his story, because he had the profound experience. He has the deep, deep feeling for it. When you listen to him, it's like, wow, this guy knows, and he's so loving and humble and joyful, very funny in the way he shares, that you can really learn from his recordings that are there at sidbanks.com. They're there for free for people to enjoy.
I'm just so listening to Sid like that is important. And in the same way, people who haven't listened to this before and haven't been around this before may be wondering, well, what did she actually do? They may be feeling confused about what happened to you, and how it happened to you, and what I'd like to say is that's okay.
Absolutely, Anne. I am a teacher. I've been a teacher since I got my certificate in 1977, and that is part of the learning journey. Absolutely. And it can take a little bit of courage, because you are taking a risk. When that's the first step and it was with me when Bob came and told me I was utterly confused. And that's the first step of the intellect. The intellect likes to know what it knows. And if it gets shaken a little bit, it might not like being, questioned. And the beautiful thing about this is that we can be more in the driver's seat of our life. We don't have to be driving our life from things we learned when we were little itty bitty and those patterns happened. We don't have to stay there. I mean, the past is the past. I can't go back and change it, but I can learn and be happy and healthy now. And I've been a teacher for many, many years, as I've said, and I've worked with lots of young people who've had just really challenging circumstances, difficult circumstances, things to overcome. And once they start to see the logic of this, and we've written a curriculum for youth and put real stories in there of change. And the purpose of these stories is so young people can see the logic of how these principles work. And if you're really hurting, sometimes it's easier to see the logic, how it works for someone else, And then one day it'll happen and you go, wow, me too. It's how it works for me. I deserve to be happy. I deserve to feel human dignity. Me too. I'm not damaged goods because of what happened to me in the past. I deserve to be happy and feel human dignity. It's so powerful. And what I'd like to say about young people who who have had difficult circumstances is that in the end, when they realize that this wisdom is available and within them, this unconditional love available 24/7, that they become the most compassionate, understanding people. And it's surprising me, but I've been doing this a long time, and it surprises me how often those young people choose a career that is in the helping profession, because they're so grateful that they've found something that helps them to feel healthy and to be forgiving of those who have betrayed them in the past. And that they want to become a helper, teacher, counselor, education assistant, social worker, psychologist. And so I think it's really, really beautiful that no matter what, the opportunity to feel the love and the health and the peace of mind is available to each of us, no matter what. That's really a powerful, powerful thing. And I've seen it time and again. So, yeah.
So there are two things in that. One is, you mentioned the curriculum that you've written, that you've put together.
Yeah.
And that is being used in schools and colleges, all different ages now, isn't it? You've done all the ages now.
3, yeah.
So, and we will have links to where people can get those from. But you also mentioned, I know the feeling is really important, that people are so used to learning intellectually, as you said.
Yes.
And that's the way we're brought up, to learn intellectually and forget about the feelings. And actually, the real learning is in the feeling.
Absolutely.
And it was lovely watching you and listening to you telling your story, because you were so in the feeling, talking about it. And I was thinking, I wish I'd found that when I was 21. And I was searching, and that's one of the main reasons that we're doing this live event over the next 2 months, is because I searched for it for about 40 years. It took me about 40 years to find it, and I was searching and was never really happy. I'd have moments, obviously, of happiness and so on, but I didn't recognize that it was inside of me all the time, and that the happiness was coming from me. It wasn't coming from the circumstances.
Right.
And I trained in psychotherapy, I trained in NLP, I trained in all sorts of things to try and work out, how do you get that, and how do you teach other people to get that, and all of those things come from teaching you. It comes from the outside, and you have to change your thoughts and you have to change your feelings, which of course you can't.
Right.
But you do all sorts of manipulations, and some of those techniques work for a time, and they certainly work better than the psychotherapy, which went back into all the old feelings and all the upset and so on, which didn't help at all. But I am so pleased that there's the opportunity for people in their teens and in their 20s to find this out now, to actually, and not even so much find it out, but just to experience that feeling. Yeah, to experience that feeling being inside of them now. And it was just so lovely listening to you telling your story and actually being in that feeling. Just lovely.
Yeah, it's I just finished wrapping up these lessons, my guidance side lessons, with little kids, 7 and 8 years old. Oh, when, so that's our dream is, you know, the younger the better. And for a child to know, because they get afraid, and of course they're afraid. Families are breaking up, or their learning isn't easy, or they don't have friends on the playground, or whatever it might be that causes them to feel angry or frustrated or whatever. And then teaching them about the happiness inside, teaching them that the feeling comes from the thought, and the thought can be, you know, changed, paid attention to or not. It's so powerful. And one might wonder, well, what about these little kids? Can they handle anything beyond, you know, the concrete? They're so close to it in their stage of development. They absolutely know about being. So it's so powerful at that young age. And then the middle school, of course, and then the teenagers as well. We did the curriculum with mostly grade 12 students last year here in Canada. That's where it's the end of high school and then off you go to university. And I work with all kinds of kids. When I was teaching at the high school, I was in special education. So the kids I work with have a DSM-5, whatever, and that gets you somebody like me to look after your program. So the beauty of this, Anne, you're very educated as well. Obviously, you love the intellect as well. The beauty of this is, like, I would have young people who had what we call a developmental disability. Perhaps it's fetal alcohol, or perhaps it's whatever other developmental disability. So the IQ was lower than average. This works amazing. This knowledge about thought, creating feeling, and catching the thought in the moment has changed people's lives. People who were, you know, basically could not be social. They were so desperate for a friend that they would be aggressive and shoving a girl. I'm thinking of it was just invited not to come to school for more than half a day. That's about all she could handle. But I could see she was just desperate for a friend. And then for her to learn in the moment when she's about to hit someone, to see that actually it is a thought. And I can either act on that thought or not. Life-changing. And then I'm going to talk about, well, there's all us neurotypicals in the middle, fabulous for us neurotypicals. And then you've got kids at the other end of the IQ spectrum that are incredibly intelligent and gifted in that way. And they too are afraid. They're anxious. They want to be something really high and mighty, which takes tremendous learning and where it's tremendously competitive. And they too benefit from this because they now understand, and one student said it beautifully, that it's the original intention is good, and then the ability to not listen to these thoughts that cause panic attacks, that cause you to not be present, that take you away from your health and happiness and your ability to learn and have a nice time with your friends. They learn that I don't have to pay attention to those. I can stick to my original idea, which is a healthy, fabulous idea for me. Isn't that amazing? Like you with these three principles, and they're not prescriptive, they're descriptive. They just explain the logic of how our realities are created. And when you have that knowledge of how it works, you're empowered to help yourself. So I just think it's fabulous that, and like what you're doing with the next 60 days, what you're doing to help people around the world, young people around the world, get an inkling of what they have, the potential they have within them. And it's not like potential, I have to do something. It's always there, kind of waiting, present. And all we have to do is just settle down a tiny bit, and it becomes apparent to us, for us, and helps us with what we have to do.
So would you like to say a little more? You mentioned the three principles, and people might be wondering what the three principles are in relation to what you've been describing, because I think you've described them beautifully without mentioning that they were three principles. Because sometimes I know when I first heard about the three principles, first of all, I experienced the feeling.
Yes.
Right, which is the most important part. But then, of course, I went back into my intellect and then tried to work out, well, what are these three principles? And then spent about a year trying to work out which one was which and what they all meant, and so on and so on. So I know going into an explanation about what each one is not particularly helpful. Understanding that they actually are all one thing may not make sense to people at first, but it's the most important understanding, I think. So how do you teach students about the three principles, or is that something too much?
No, good, very good. We're talking to youth here, so I'll just this is what I would say to kids who are at the age of development of like 16, right? First of all, the principles are timeless. And what is new is how Sid, and he says it was an insight for him, how he created the three principles formula, which I'm a math teacher as well, love math. So we've got this formula: mind plus consciousness plus thought equals reality. And we get, there's a universal aspect to these principles, and then we also get our little bit of personal use of them while we're alive on this earth. So there's the universal mind, where the house of all the wisdom and the common sense, and then there's the consciousness, which is the awareness. And there's the personal consciousness of where I am in this moment, where is my level, where it's, and then the universal consciousness of unconditional, it's love, love, love equals love. The universal awareness, obviously, we're all getting really savvy, realizing that Mother Nature, it's one energy, right? And then the beautiful, beautiful principle of thought. And Sid says on his recordings, and I would agree as a teacher, that's where we really do the teaching. What we need to understand to help ourselves is to understand that it's a power. It's a neutral power. It's a power that we use every moment that we're alive on this earth. We tap into it and we get our personal thought, but thought itself is a power, and a neutral power. And this is where the energy is. This is where the teaching power is. If you can understand just even a tiny bit that what you're thinking is creating what you see, you start to be able to use your free will a little bit wiser. Not that these thoughts don't come up. You saw a scary movie, next day a scary thought pops up. Where'd that come from? It doesn't matter. Are you going to go with it, or are you going to let it go? That's the power. Not in controlling what pops up, but in choosing what the heck I'm going to do with it. And realizing we do have a choice. I think that's the big one. And a lot of the three principles work has gone into the prisons. And how often have prisoners said, I didn't realize I had a choice. I had this thought and I thought I had to act on it. Next thing I know, I'm in jail because I acted on this thought. But if you have that thought and don't act on it, no one's hurt. It's a neutral power. So I think that's fabulous, just to let people know the logic and the power of thought.
And the biggest thing that I learned and that made most sense to me when I first learned about the principles was I had understood wisdom. I mean, we all
yes
we grow up with wisdom, right? But I had understood wisdom, but then I got confused because I had until that point believed that uncomfortable feelings were part of wisdom. So I was under the impression that if I had an uncomfortable feeling, it meant something important. It meant that something was wrong and I had to do something about it. And I had no idea. When I heard about the principles and understood that an uncomfortable feeling is just the result of some uncomfortable thought that happens to be passing through my mind in that moment, and that I don't have to take any notice of it, and another thought will come along in another moment and I'll feel something different. I was like, what? That was really the biggest thing for me to begin with. And that was the understanding that feeling is just a reflection of thoughts that happen to be passing through in a moment, and that uncomfortable feelings are not important. It's like,
no. Might
wow.
keep you safe. There might be a practical side. It keeps you safe. But yeah, absolutely. That and that what you're saying, Anne, for any age, little to my age, very, very important. Love Einstein. Now he does a beautiful job of talking about. He would say, instead of wisdom, he would say intuition. And he would say that one of his amazing formulas or theories came to him as an insight, complete package. And then his intellect had to spend 5 whatever years to prove what he had as an insight. Now he differentiates beautifully. He talks about there's a feeling from an emotion. There's an emotion, a feeling like that, which is, like you're saying, a thought that passes and it creates a feeling. And then he also talks about the deep feeling of intuition. And this is really where we want people to be aware that that's available to them. This deep feeling of peace of mind, of contentment, of joy, of compassion. It's that deep feeling that is not from my little thought that's passing by, but just from the calm state of mind, and it's new and it's fresh, and it comes with, Sid used to say this, a feeling brings information. And through the years, I've found that to be very true. You think, well, what good's a feeling? Well, actually, it comes with a tremendous amount of information that is custom just for you to help you navigate your life.
Yes, just not the sort of information I thought it was giving me in the first.
Yeah. And we can't, and wherever we're at with this, you can't analyze it. It's a mystery. And that's something I think the intellect maybe doesn't like, that it's just one big, huge mystery. We will never, ever know. It's just, that's why it's a lifelong journey of learning, because we never, ever, we get a hint that it's a mystery, and we can be, charmed by that or intrigued by that, but we can never intellectually, even Einstein couldn't, it's the mystery. We never know.
Yeah. That's lovely. So let me just I don't think there are any questions here. Let me just have a look and see. Oh yes, I beg your pardon. I'm missing out on the, whoopsie. Is that anything? David is asking, what's a wise approach to physical health?
Oh my gosh.
Just a simple question there.
Yeah, just a simple question. I just finished, I did some, I haven't done Pro-D in a while, so I did Dr. Pettit's fabulous course on, what does he call it? Mind, brain, body connection. Oh, I just loved learning more from the medical side you know, I'm more of a philosopher type person. So I tend to believe things that I just kind of know are true. But philosophy has always driven medicine, and it kind of goes back and forth. And then there'll be a philosophical statement, and then all of a sudden the technology has gotten to the point where it can back up the philosophy. So what they're finding now, Dr. Pettit says there's 3 things that cells respond to, which is injury, toxin, and thought. I don't know about the proportions. Doesn't really matter to me, the proportions. But if you understand that that thought has, there's one doctor who says, thought cannot be kept secret from any part of your body. It's part of the equation. Is if we're experiencing stressful thoughts again and again and again, it will have a negative effect on our physical health. And they've proved that. Dr. Sternberg has proven that with regard to inflammation and depression. So it's in there. But then the thing is, my doc always says, get real. Healthy people get sick. That's just the way it is. So the point is knowing that thought has something to do with our physical health. Every doctor I studied, Dr. Pettit as a psychiatrist, they all are very, very clear. Once you know that, it serves you well to be very compassionate towards yourself and not blaming or guilt or shame. So there's 2 parts to that. Know that what we're thinking has an effect on health. And secondly, if we are ill, we have disease, to not be hard on ourselves because of it. Instead, be as kind and compassionate with ourselves as we can.
So I can't see any other questions there at the moment. So David, does that answer your question, or would you, if you'd like to, I can invite you on to speak. Just let me know whether that's in the chat. And is there anyone else that would like to ask a question at the moment? The other thing is that, Christa, there may well be questions later on when people watch this back. And so what I'd like to say to people is that if you are watching this later, then please just post the questions here, or you can send them to us by email if you don't want to be identified, and we will get back to you. And I certainly, Christa will be happy to answer your questions. So anyone who would like to if you're watching this on YouTube, then please leave comments in the comments underneath. And if you're watching it on here, let us know. No, there don't seem to be any more questions at the moment. Oh, wait a minute. Oh, well, Kathy would like you to speak a little more about your curriculum.
Wow, what a journey. I retired from teaching, and then right away got into writing. Actually, it was my 3rd principles-based curriculum, my 3rd go round. And such a beautiful journey of finding what is it that society is looking for, and then doing focus groups with youth to see, okay, this is what the adults in society think youth are looking for. Focus groups with youth. What are your big issues that, where is it? What areas do you want help with? And then just compiling all these amazing stories that I've kept through the years of change, and turning them into a narrative to help young people. And then I hired my former student. It's quite cute with the owl. And so in here we have 8 chapters, 6 stories. They're true stories of change of young people I've come to know. And one of them is actually a story. My colleague is from the US, Jane, and one of them is her stories, but they're true stories, and they align with what it is we're looking for in our society. And one summer, I tell you, the most fun I had, one summer I said to my husband, I just need a couple weeks of kind of no schedule. And I took a very deep dive. I'm very familiar with Sid's books, but what I did was, okay, so this is The Missing Link. I took a deep dive into The Missing Link, The Enlightened Gardener, and this one I take to the beach, so it's kind of ratty looking. No cover anymore. The Enlightened Gardener Revisited. And I took a deep dive into this, plus some of the recordings, and found Sid's statements that matched thematically with what it is we were looking for. So very lovingly put together with bits of wisdom from Sid, the stories of change, and then some fabulous little videos that are associated with it. And then what people are finding, and I found too, the people who use the curriculum, it's that you read the story, wow. And the beauty of a story is that you wrap some truth with a story, and then the story stays with you and the truth grows with you because you have that context of the story. You can remember, you can kind of picture the guy sitting in the chair. I actually had this happen the other day. A young man was like, I remember that story. I remember when the guy sat in the chair and all of a sudden he saw life this way. So stories are so, well, we love them, eh? They're powerful, and they enable you to take that bit of truth and have it grow inside your mind. So, and then after reading the story, there's all these amazing kind of open-ended discussion questions. So all of a sudden, and that's where the real teaching comes, is you've heard something, you've been given some truth to chew on, and now we're going to connect that with your life experience. So you can really own that knowledge. So it's really powerful, and I really love it. I really love sharing it with young people. And I was offered to do it with some 25-year-olds. And so did the curriculum just as a favor to a friend with some 25-year-olds, and it still resonates with kids of that age as well. So I think that's the important thing, is that you see the possibility, you know it's true, and then you start to see the logic, which I'll put in, I have Sid's quotes in there, the logic that shows you that, yes, it's true for you too. And then at the end of every chapter, being a teacher, there's an experiment. And it's so powerful. You give people an experiment, try this out for this week, and they will do it. They take that invitation and they come back the next week and they go, wow, I really noticed this or that. I really saw the logic, or I was really, really mad at my family. And so I slammed the door, went into my room, and then, I got over it. It didn't last for days and days. And I went out and I finished making the cookies and it was all good. So just kind of experimenting it with yourself, just to prove to yourself the logic, and not right or wrong, or, I'm in a low mood, I should be mad at myself because I should know better. Nothing like that. It's just kind of, you understand what's going on, so you get more of the good stuff.
That's amazing. And so if people who are listening, if young people who are listening would like to use the curriculum, at the moment it's in book form.
Yeah.
They can get it, they can buy it online on Amazon and so on, or
yeah, and on my website, my guidance.
Yes, on your website too.
Yeah, just very it's really kind of pretty with colored pictures and stuff. But yeah, very, very reasonable. It's affordable.
Yeah. So they can do it on their own, or they need to do it with a group,
No,
or.
no, I've worked in alternate ed for many years, and uh, a popular thing in alt ed is that some learners need to be self-directed. I know that. Some young people are supporting themselves and have to go to school, like a storefront school or whatever, for whatever reason. Doesn't matter to me the reason. So I've designed it so that you can do this as a self-directed learner. And I've made it so that you don't need the teacher's manual. All the goodies are in the learner book. So it's complete. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
And have you, you don't do an online course in it? Have you done that?
No.
It just sounds like a fantastic way of, it just sounds like a fantastic possibility to me to do an online course with people who do it in the same way that you just talked about running a group, that you could
Absolutely.
do. Yeah, that would be such fun. Yeah.
It's actually, to be honest, and really very, very new. I'm just kind of finishing the production part. And there's actually, you and I were gonna maybe put the little video on, but
I have put the video on. So the videos in the short videos showing the results is in the Facebook group, and it's on YouTube. So it's on the YouTube channel, and it's in the Facebook group as well.
Beautiful. I think if young people were to watch that and see what their peers halfway around the world or next door, whatever, see what people have learned from this is valuable. And then the book does connect with my online stuff. It's not me live, but there's little videos and tech activities and stuff like that there as well. But
and you have a YouTube channel too. So that's
yes.
And all of those links to those are already on your profile on thesecretofeverything.com.
Right. So The Secret of Everything, definitely, and it's a feeling, like that's how we started, and it's absolutely about the feeling, but just how wonderful to know that that's within each and every human being is, I think, is really a fabulous message for the world, and how it aligns with philosophies through the ages is just really wonderful and a lot of fun to see that. And you start to see this is very fundamental, these three principles and the formula: mind plus consciousness plus thought equals reality. But start cluing in, and then you kind of look around and start really hearing people, and you go, it's everywhere. Because that's just becomes your focus, is looking for the good stuff. And you start to see that children are saying it, the grocery clerk, gas attendant, they're all, people are saying it. And if we kind of pick up on it, it just gives you that little bit of extra joy to see that, wow, there's a lot of truth in the world being shared. Yeah.
And the funny thing is, although it's called The Secret of Everything, it isn't really a secret. It isn't really a secret at all. It's something that we've always known, that we were born with, but that we've forgotten about. So it's
exactly. I think that's exactly it, Anne, is that we've temporarily forgotten. And so that to me, it's just occurring to me now, it makes such common sense that when you hear it, it resonates because you know it. So you just can't deny that, that you're connected to this feeling, and that you kind of hear it from inside yourself, even though someone else is speaking. Yeah.
And it was so interesting at the beginning of your story, hearing how you didn't even understand how it was, no, I'm not having anything to do with that. And yet the feeling somehow resonated with you, and you just got it without even intellectually getting what it was about. So
Yeah, it's kind of like the intellect needs to be like, there, it's okay. I won't give up on you totally. Let's work together. There. Stop fighting me. Yeah.
So that's beautiful.
There we are.
And I'm not quite sure what that is. Kathy, what said something about, and students have access to web resources. Oh, so you have web resources you have resources on the website as well.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, we're just kind of putting the package all together. It's really fun. Yeah.
Kathy, you can come on and speak if you'd like to. You don't. Would you like to come on and say anything, or are you just going to leave messages on the? I can invite you on if you'd like to come on, but I don't know how to allow to talk, allow to. Thanks, you're doing fine. You're doing no, you are doing fine, and that's really good, I think. So there don't seem to be any more questions. And it's just been lovely. It's just been
really nice,
a lovely feeling. And
yes.
Thank you so much for sharing all of that.
I appreciate the invitation, Anne. Really, I do. Thank you.
And it's been such a lovely way to start the whole series. So thank you very much.
That's great. Yeah, so I'd love people to get in touch with me. That's kind of my thing now. That's what I'm doing. And particularly interested at this stage in speaking with teachers, although any kind person is fine, but that's my professional goal right now. Is I'm just getting all this ready, and then I'll start speaking with teachers who are maybe interested in using the curriculum.
Absolutely, and that's part of the reason again why we're aiming this at young people in their teens and in their 20s, because if they're just starting out in their career, if they're just like you were, just starting out in their career as teachers or doctors, as I was, or whatever, then it makes such a difference if you can, like it did for you, if you can understand how our experience works right from the start, you can have such a different experience with your students, just like you did. So
yeah, absolutely.
So for the budding teachers out there, this is...
And for those young people who have, the ones that are really headed towards a very demanding intellectual course, right? They've chosen something in medicine or whatever, to have this understanding so that you can maximize your learning and still have a life and not have to resort to outer things to calm down when you get. My son is a ICU doctor, very demanding, as you know, Anne. And with this understanding, he's able to come home and just switch gears and be the young dad. It's that ability to be present and how to take care of, like the young man's asking about health, that ability to really take care of what's going on with your thoughts and being present. It's like a huge, huge gift for young people who are headed on a very, deep intellectual path. This helps you tremendously.
Yeah, it totally is. I really wish when I was a young doctor and a medical student and so on, that I had understood this, and that's one of the things that we are aiming to get this out.
Yes.
And the other thing that Kathy mentioned is that you consult online, that when you said for people to get in touch with you, you can talk to people online. So it's anywhere all over the world. It's not just a local to you.
No. It's I love technology, and just thrilled that this has become a global thing. Because obviously back in 44 years ago, we maybe had those little cassette tapes. So just to see the advancements in technology to where we are now, it's just, we can all really be quite connected, which is fabulous. Yeah. You're right.
The easiest way for people to find out more details about the whole thing is just to go to thesecretofeverything.com, and all the details are on there.
Perfect. Thank you so much. It's
And
incredible that you had this idea to put all this together.
yes, where did that come from?
Yeah. Now what have I done?
Nothing to-
Thanks, Anne, and everybody. Thank you.
Thank you very much.